Okay, we're going to move on to our speaker presentation. We already said that Myles Wallace is joining us as our speaker. I'm going to introduce Myles quickly, and then we'll hear from him. So Myles works for Peak Performers, a nonprofit staffing firm that has been in business since 1994. And he shares what he does every week. They staff state of Texas government agency jobs with office professionals, accounting and IT roles. And as a nonprofit, they give job hiring priority to people with disabilities and chronic medical conditions. And you know, Myles is really a fantastic guy. I really have enjoyed getting to know him and learning the important work they do at Peak Performers. And you know, they're changing the world one job at a time. Myles works in strategic partnerships for Peak and has a background in B2B sales, recruiting, and digital marketing. He's proud to call Austin home, and outside of work enjoys hobby board games, bike riding, and swimming. Do you swim at where do you swim, Myles?
My neighborhood pool. In fact, I hit a personal milestone, as I like to call it. I hit a personal milestone the other day when I hit 70 laps or just over 1 mile in swimming. So, yeah,
Wow.
I have to say the only downside is when you have a 25-meter pool, that just means that you're seeing the same scenes over and over and over again. It's a bit like a hamster wheel, but that's okay. I'll still take
That's
it.
okay. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Well,
You
thank
know,
you.
when I lived in South Austin, I used to swim at Barton Springs, and there was a reason why you kept moving in Barton Springs. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll leave that up to you to hop in that pool.
Yeah. It is incredibly cold in Barton Springs. Well,
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it
and Tim,
is.
let me say for the record, too, you've been an enormous asset to Launchpad and to the job seeking community. I will personally miss you, and I certainly hope that you keep in touch. But thank you for all that you've done for the job seekers here.
Oh, thank you, Myles. I appreciate that. So Myles' presentation today is titled "A Million Smart Decisions," and I'm going to let him explain what that is.
Awesome.
It's a very catchy title. So please turn on your cameras and mute your mics and welcome Myles.
Well, thank you, everybody. Hello, hello. And yes, let me echo that. I am a person with that's hard of hearing. So if I am able to see your face during the presentation, that does help me to be able to make sure that, hey, I'm kind of hitting the mark and that people are resonating with what I say. So that kind of communication style is really important to me. And I miss being able to see everybody in person, but I know that, this is a way that we can reach more audience right now. So I'm very excited about that. By the way, just because I'm really bad at it, we're talking about habits today, and habits, I'm going to actually drop all of my contact information into the chat right here. If you've not connected with me yet, this is a great habit to start. Go ahead and connect with me. If you maybe don't have a great, huge LinkedIn network yet, I'm happy to be your first, second, or your 10th connection, or even your 5,000th connection. I'm here and happy to be a resource for you. And I just kind of dropped in some of the top jobs that we're looking for this week. Those include things like accountants, clerks, administrative professionals, project management specialists, and attorneys. So a whole bunch of different jobs. And real quick, before we kind of get too deep in the weeds, I'm going to take just a second to show you where you can go to find all of our jobs online. So if you go to peakperformers.org, off the main site, you kind of have two different options here. First up, what you can do is you can click on Browse Jobs in order to browse all the jobs that are available right now at the current time. We try to be as transparent as we possibly can be with all these jobs. So we will include things like the compensation for the position. We're going to include what the project duration is expected to be, as well as the work location and whether it's going to be remote or hybrid or on-site, or what's that look like. As well as, I often tell people that when it comes to our agency, you can oftentimes kind of see whether you'd be a fit for the position or not by going through basically what we're looking for. Oftentimes our recruiters will take a very literal approach where they're literally checking a box to see, hey, does somebody have X, Y, and Z of skills, and check or no check. And, we have to get all the checks there before we can submit somebody in for a position. So I encourage you to kind of take a look at that and look at that information, because that will be a good way to kind of assess whether you'd be a good fit for the position. All right, so let me kind of dive right into here. If you have not applied with Peak Performers, by the way, again, follow up with me personally. I'm happy to kind of get you connected to the right people at Peak Performers, and my contact information is in the chat. So today we're talking about a million smart decisions. And I wanted to kind of start this conversation with explaining what I was doing over the last couple of weeks. So recently I went to a disability inn. So as you know, our company largely focuses on recruiting professionals with disabilities and then finding companies that want to hire them too. The state of Texas has been our largest customer for a very long time, but we are excited because we're expanding into the private sector quite rapidly. And this is opening up a whole host of new opportunities. In fact, this week we just finished up the recruitment for a whole bunch of teachers with a local charter school here. Now, I went to a big conference like that, and I probably handed out 300 business cards, a whole bunch of flyers and things like that. But I tell you what, the most exhausting part of that entire process was as I got back to my office, I sat down, I had about a million emails looking at me, but I had a stack this thick of business cards. And I sent every single one of those people a follow-up email and connected with every single one of them on LinkedIn. Now, I know this doesn't sound like a big deal, but it took many hours out of my day to go through this whole process. And this has been the kind of process that allows me to not only have a lot of traction with job seekers, but also with employers too. And I will, to this day, get people that are more likely to respond to me and are also, I tend to get emails out of the blue 3, 4, 5 years later from people that I haven't heard from forever. And they're like, hey, Myles, can you help out with this particular thing? So this is kind of what got me inspired for this particular presentation about a million smart decisions. So just to kind of really quickly recap, I'll introduce myself and Peak Performers, which I already did to a large extent right here. We're going to talk a little bit more about building habits and what kind of effective habits you can build that I would recommend. And then finally, we're going to leave it open for Q&A because I don't know all the answers. Y'all are going to chime in, and I want to hear your voice as well at the end here too. As James was saying, I am Myles. I'm with Peak Performers. I've been here with Peak for the last probably 5 years now. And my role as a strategic partnership specialist is connect people to the right other people within Peak, as well as be the personal brand for Peak Performers and kind of getting out there in the community. What this means for you is that, again, I'm your kind of first stop to say hello and get you connected to the right person at Peak. And I also wanted to talk a little bit more about Peak Performers. So we've been in business for the last 27 years. Last year, we put about 1,400 people to work in professional positions. What do I mean by professional? I mean admin and up. And a lot of people go, wait a second, y'all are recruiting for people with disabilities. What does that mean exactly? Well, first off, a disability is anything that's physical, mental, or emotional that affects one or more major life condition. So it might be something visible and obvious about a person, such as being in a wheelchair, but it also might be invisible about a person too. And it's estimated to affect about 25% of all working adults. What's more is that this is actually a kind of quote unquote minority group that you can actually become part of as you age, just because accidents happen and aging happens. This is a natural part of growing older. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. But invisible conditions include things like ADHD or dyslexia or hypertension or post-traumatic stress disorder or sleep apnea. In fact, I mentioned earlier that I myself have a hearing loss. And so when I meet you in person, I'm oftentimes going to be using hearing aids and also be watching your lips really closely, as well as your face to kind of gauge reaction. And then the final bit too is that we currently have 85% of our workforce has a disability and they're given priority access. What does that mean? Well, that means that let's say 10 people apply for the position and let's say 7 of them have a ADA qualifying condition or disability. We will always seek to hire from that particular group of people. However, if there is not a pool of people that are available that have a qualifying condition, we may look outside that, especially for like hard to fill roles where we can't find somebody, and then also seek out somebody that may not have a qualifying disability as well. But I always tell everybody, take a look at our website because it does have a lot of information there, and it can give you a lot of guidance as to whether or not you have a disability, even if you quote unquote don't feel disabled. I don't know about y'all, but I don't feel disabled. That's not something that's necessarily something that I want to associate with my identity, but there's nothing wrong with having challenges in your life. There's nothing wrong with having a condition. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that sometimes, you have certain challenges and you need help to be able to kind of function. I mean, it took me many, many years before I kind of came to peace with my own hearing aids and my own hearing loss and accepted the fact that, hey, I'm a lot more effective if I can hear people really well. And just to reiterate, you can go to peakperformers.org. You can either browse for jobs or you can quick apply. And that's where you can go to just kind of upload your resume for consideration. And you're always welcome to follow up with me. All right. I talked about this real quickly, so I'm going to skip over this slide. Sorry about that. I get in my own way sometimes. I don't know about y'all. All right, so we're going to be talking about habits today. So the first point that I would make is that success in job seeking, or success in any matter in any way for that matter, is not about making a single brilliant decision or a couple of brilliant decisions. It's about making lots and lots of really good ones. So it was a good idea for me to follow up with every single one of those business cards, even though it took time and energy and I didn't really want to do it, right? Second off, I would say that the things that we do unconsciously have the most impact on our day, and they also consume the most of our time. Think about just all the things that you do unconsciously during the course of the day, and think about, why do I do those things? And whether that's scrolling through social media, or whether that's having coffee in the morning, or whether that's watching TV at night, what kind of things do I do unconsciously, and how can I have more control and more impact over those things, and seek to automate the process as much as possible? And the third thing is that, from that stack of business cards that I referenced earlier, I'm probably not going to see the results of that right away. In fact, most people don't even write me back. But again, years later, I get people that reach out to me out of the blue that ask me, hey, Myles, can you help with X, Y, and Z? So habits are hard to see the results from immediately, but they have a compounding effects over time, which is what I hope that it will be for y'all as well. All right, so first off, we're going to be talking about building habits, and I like to start off with my favorite point that I like to make about habits, and that is remove choice from the equation. If you decide that it's something that matters to you, if you decide that it's something that's important to you, I want you to remove the choice altogether. One of the challenges that I meet when I meet a lot of people, and actually for my own self too, is that during the season when I'm not swimming, I usually find challenges with getting motivated in the morning to go out running. And the most effective thing that I've been able to do recently is I set out my running clothes in the morning ahead of time on my dresser so that they're right there and so I don't have to think about it. And furthermore, I don't phrase it to myself as an option. I'm building a habit, and furthermore, I also schedule it out so that certain days of the week, I always go out running and already have my alarm set for that kind of thing. So whatever you can do, you want to remove choice from the equation altogether so that you are not even having to think about it, and you're not even giving yourself the option to opt out. Think about how many times this might come up during the job search process right here. Am I going to apply for jobs today? Well, maybe. Or am I going to send that cover letter follow-up? Well, maybe. No, don't do that. Just have it be straightforward. Yes, I'm going to do this. I've already decided that I'm going to do this consistently, and just remove choice altogether. Speaking of which, we're going to be talking a little bit about changing your schedule. So this is the part where I want you all to interact a little bit more. And if you don't mind, in the chat, what I'm going to have you do is write in the chat what time your alarm is set for during the weekdays, Monday through Friday. Go ahead and drop that into the chat now. All right, I'm seeing some good alarms right here. I'm seeing 6 a.m. I'm seeing no alarm. Okay, gotcha. I'm seeing some 7 a.m. and 6:55 a.m., 8:45, 9 a.m. Okay, cool. All right. I'm seeing a lot of things, and I appreciate y'all kind of being transparent about that as well. All right, the next thing that I'm going to have you drop in the chat is, what job search activity have you done this morning before the Launchpad meeting? Thank you, Ahmed. I appreciate your honesty right there. We have checked emails and LinkedIn messages. Cool. Checking LinkedIn and email. Okay, checking email. All right. Prepping talk. Okay, cool. So I'm seeing a lot of people, and what I'm encouraged by this is that a lot of people are already going through some of the process right here. People oftentimes ask me, Myles, when's the best time to look for work? 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. All right, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, especially if you're not currently working at this given moment. That is the most effective time when you're going to be able to get in contact with recruiters, get in contact with people. And furthermore, you want to make sure that you're doing your most important activities, your most important outreach between the hours of 9 to 11 a.m. typically on most days. Furthermore, your messages are much more likely to get read and your voicemails are more likely to get heard if you leave them on Monday or Tuesday. So it's just kind of the natural flow of the week. Every week we kind of look at our own kind of activity and we see a huge spike on Monday and then gradually peters off towards Friday. So think about this and kind of think how you might want to change your schedule or actually physically block out certain aspects of your schedule as well too, so that you can really build in effective habits to reach people at the exact right time, because timing does matter. Again, particularly 9 to 11, that's kind of your sweet spot to get in front of people, to talk to people, to follow up with people and make those human to human connections. And then maybe later on in the afternoon might be that time to rewrite my cover letter, or maybe to really work on rebuilding my LinkedIn, or doing stuff that's not quite as time sensitive as well. So thanks y'all. And I appreciate that many of you have already done a couple job search activities this morning. Now, here's another one too. When it comes to building habits, what we want to do is we want to also make sure that our environment is conducive for changing those habits. The perfect example that I like to throw out here for people is that I tend to be really messy. And actually, this is something that I struggle with personally quite a bit myself, is building the right kind of habitat to where I'm going to be successful at executing habits in a consistent manner too. So what does that mean for you? Well, first off, what that means is that ideally during the course of your workday, you want to have minimal distractions. I like to encourage you to put on Do Not Disturb. I like to encourage you to set reminders so that they pop up onto your computer or onto your phone so that you know to do what you're going to do. I encourage you to use a scheduling planner as well. And I encourage you to minimize any kind of noises or the pets coming into the room or anything like that that's going to affect you and your environment. You want to be able to focus, and you want to treat this as much like a workspace as you possibly can. Think again back to my old tip of hey, I want to go for a run in the morning. The best thing I can do is set up my running clothes on the dresser the night before and already commit to doing it. And then the other kind of bit that I would throw out here is you want to make sure that you are giving yourself feedback. The nice thing about working in a work world is that you have other people, be that peers or managers or whatever, that are constantly giving you feedback. And I don't know about y'all, but I gain a lot of energy from this. And I also gain a lot of traction in everything that I do from the feedback that I receive from other people. So actually, what I want you to do, again, we're going to kind of use the chat in the chat window right there. What I would like to do is for you to give yourself a shout out and commend yourself for something positive that you did this week, something that you had control over, and something that there was an action and there was an effect, and give yourself that positive feedback. Shout it out so that everybody can see. By the way, Aaron, thank you for that comment there. The library can be really, really effective for that. Nora says you had 2 interviews this week. Fantastic, Nora. I appreciate you saying that, and congrats to you. Curtis says I had a great interview this week and it led to an in-person interview last week. Fantastic. All right, Saritha, thank you for that. Reading things to sharpen my skills. What I would recommend there is maybe make it a little bit more specific right there. So, thank you. Yeah, whenever we're given feedback, even if that's to ourselves, make it something really specific. Rick says he went to a resume workshop. Mary said, I have 2 interviews and started prepping for a second interview, and I took a long walk several times. Mary, you bring up a really good point. I oftentimes like to schedule breaks during the day for myself during the workday, because that can really help me focus too. So great way to kind of shout that out. Rebecca says, I had an interview and sent a thank you follow-up email within 24 hours. Fantastic. Love that follow-up activity there. And Tell says, worked on obtaining my project management certification through LinkedIn. Cool, fantastic. All right. Well, thanks, y'all. I appreciate you sharing that. And again, what I encourage you to do is give that feedback to yourself throughout the week, because you do work hard and you do make great things happen. So make sure that you are giving yourself that positive feedback. And then here's another kind of hack that I like to throw out to people is make sure that when you're making these habits, make it simple and make it measurable. You already kind of heard me give feedback to one of the job seekers earlier, is that you want to make sure that it's specific, that it's simple, and that it's measurable. For example, if I were to make a goal and I were to say, hey, my goal is to apply for a couple of jobs this week. Okay, so maybe I could make a goal and break it down to be something a little bit simpler and more measurable. For example, can I apply for 2 jobs every single day? Can I apply for 3 jobs every single day? Make it something that you can physically check off of a list. So make it simple and make it measurable. And then the final bit too is to make sure that you write it down. So real quick, we're going to actually circle back to this habit right here after I have a chance to kind of share with you some of the habits that I recommend as well. But start thinking about this now, about some of the habits that you'd like to change and which ones you're going to write down so that you can actually make an impact on those right now. As kind of a summary recap right here, it all boils down to the 3 R's, if you will. Reminder, make sure that you write it down and that you look at it constantly until it becomes automatic for you. Make it routine and take the choice completely out of it altogether. And then finally, reward. This is something that we particularly struggle with when we are doing the job search alone, is make sure that you are seeking out rewards to encourage your own positive behaviors as well. All right. So I hope that y'all are doing well, by the way. Feel free, if you do have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. And Shannon, if you don't mind interrupting me, that would be helpful for me as well, too. All right. So for this, I'm going to actually kind of switch gears a little bit and kind of share with you one of my little hacks that I like to throw out for checking for jobs. Now, real quick, to kind of give you all context on how most jobs are posted. Has anybody ever heard heard people say that 75% of jobs are not posted online before? You can feel free to raise your hand if that is something that you've heard before. Yes, that's 100% accurate right there. And so a lot of times what we have to do is we have to figure out kind of unique ways to find all these undercover jobs. Additionally, sometimes is that the jobs are not going to be posted consistently in a way that's most visible to everybody. Just to give you an idea of how the recruiting process works in general, is step one in the recruiting process is that a company establishes that they have a need, and they say, great, we need to hire a project manager into our midst right here. And so all the people that are on the team, they turn to the person on their left and they turn to the person on the right and they say, well, who do you know? And this is how most jobs are filled. When we talk about that 75% rule, most jobs are filled just with that internal network of who do they know, which is why, networking can be so valuable for you. Now, the next step after that is that a lot of times you realize, okay, well, we don't have anybody in our network that would be a really good fit for this right here. Or maybe we've reached out to all those people and none of them are available to work. Okay, so now we're going to go and post the job onto our website. So now we go from a candidate pool that's this big to a candidate pool that's, a little bit more like this big right here. It's a free thing that we can do, but it takes a little bit more time. We have to make sure that we write up the job description really well. And we have to make sure that we go check in on it and follow up with all the people that actually applied for the position. Okay, so now we post this, and oftentimes this is where many companies, especially those with a smaller budget or don't have a specific recruiting budget, this is where jobs go to die. This is where it ends right there. So if you are not getting into that candidate pool, and if you're not going and looking at their websites directly, you're going to miss out on opportunities as well. Now, what most of y'all are seeing when you go through Indeed and you go through Google and you go through all these various different platforms is that's where they go and they decide, hey, I need to spend some money. I need to find some talent for these jobs. And so therefore I'm going to pay to advertise my job. So the reality of it is that it's kind of, you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg when you look at Indeed, when you look at all these other various different jobs search platforms that are out there. Additionally, these are the most visible jobs. And so all the job seekers are going to go for that particular position. So I like to recommend a slightly a slightly different approach to looking for work. So this is my own kind of personal technique that I have developed over the years that can really help you do it. So step one is what you do is you go to Indeed and you go to LinkedIn and all these different places where you see job names that are coming up. So that's kind of the first step right there. Now, first off, keep in mind that if you're applying for these jobs directly through this platform, it's still a good idea to do so because they've established that it's a need and they put budget behind it to indicate that, yes, this is valuable to our company. But the odds are you are probably going to be competing against a lot of people, and the odds are you probably will not get selected for this position. So what I like to do is I like to take notes of all those different companies that are indicate that they are hiring. And then what I do is I go ahead and bookmark them. Now, once I've had a chance to bookmark them, I put them all into a single gigantic folder that I keep onto my in my bookmarks of my browser. And then every single morning, first thing that I do when I wake up, I'm going to open all of these at the same time. So this is, for example, kind of a sample search that I did for a project manager right here. I'm going to start off with the big stuff. I'm going to start off with Indeed, the places that I know, and I'm going to be able to kind of scroll through this and see, oh, has there been any new postings on Indeed for a project manager position? Okay, fantastic. Once I've kind of had a chance to do that a little bit, and I apologize, my internet's being a little bit slow right here, especially when you try to open 10 tabs at the same time, you know. I used to work for Apple and I used to test computers to see if I could break them because I would open up literally everything on the computer at the same moment and see if I could make them crash. It's a little bit weird. Yeah. All right. Then I go through and I close out Indeed and I check Glassdoor. Okay, fantastic. Now I start to drill into more of the specifics right here where I say, okay, so IBM, I've already bookmarked IBM. I've bookmarked and saved the search for project managers with IBM. And now I go to check IBM. But then we're going to go on to even more specific stuff. How about the city of Austin? What project managers are they looking for within the city of Austin? And then we're going to get technical. Let's go ahead and go straight over to Dell and see, hey, what kind of project manager roles are they recruiting for within Dell? Let's look at Bank of America. Hey, I'm a bit of a nerd. I really like my I really enjoy my gaming. So let's go ahead and look at Blizzard and see what kind of project management stuff that they have. Now, what's effective about this is that you are oftentimes one of the first people to know about these jobs because you're going and checking their job boards consistently. So this is something that like I just open up every single day, so I don't even think about it, and I just close it out when I'm done with it. But in addition to that, addition to it being a habit and something that's consistent, I'm also going to fall in a smaller candidate pool if I choose to apply right now. And I'm going to be one of the first people to apply. So maybe they're just going to offer me the position right out of the gate and I'm not even going to have to compete because that'd be awesome. All right, cool. By the way, I want to pause right here. Any questions that have come up or any thoughts that y'all have?
Hey, Myles. Hi, this is Tel Butler. Hey,
Hey,
Myles, I may have just skipped a step because I had a little break in my internet service.
no
After you
problem.
said that one of the things just in your process, which I think is great, you said look for companies that are hiring and then bookmark those. And then
Mhm.
then what did you say after that before you said look at the type of roles they're looking for? Did you say go to their job boards and then look at their job boards to see what they're looking for?
Yeah, just go straight to the company's job boards. Yeah,
Okay.
so like if you see a position listed with City of Austin, I just bookmark City of Austin. In fact, a lot of times you can even plug in your search and then bookmark it, and it'll pop up with your search right there.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Well, is there a way to get an early look at these jobs that you were talking about? That's where I lost you. Um,
Oh yeah, oftentimes if you look at it and you are going straight to their job board, you're going to get in front of everybody else. Because a
okay,
lot of times most people don't see it until it hits Indeed or until it hits
okay,
all of the different platforms that
okay,
repost. Of
okay. Got you. Thank you for giving me that information.
course, yeah.
Miles. Miles, when I was doing sales, I would usually, if I left a voicemail for somebody or had an email, I would usually move it forward in my calendar to reach out to them again in a month, 3 months, whatever seemed appropriate. Um, Putting on your recruiter hat, how often do you want to be reached out to by somebody who's a prospective candidate?
That's a good question. Well, there's a couple different ways to answer that. First off, I like to send a quick, and I'll talk about more follow-ups more in the future here. But one of the habits that I like to do is I like to I like to communicate multiple different ways. So I'm a very visual kind of person, and because I have a hearing loss, I oftentimes don't trust my own ears, and so sometimes I really like to have that via email. So that's where I'm going to pre-processing a lot of information. But I know a lot of other people that say they actually process information in a very different way, and they're going to process information via email. So why not just via phone. So why not just communicate with people both different ways, and then when you follow up with them in a consistent manner. Oftentimes, you can set expectations to say with them, "Hey, I will follow up with you in 2 weeks." Or if you do an interview, you can say, "Hey, I really enjoyed our conversation today, Shannon. Is it okay if I follow up with you in 2 weeks from now?" 9 times out of 10, if you had a good connection with that person, they're going to say absolutely. Thank you for that question. We'll dive into that because believe me, I've got templates and I've got follow-up recommendations out the wazoo. So now we're going to actually talk a little bit more about utilizing templates, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that follow-up technique as well too. Again, we will make sure that. All right. So if you are not using a template for literally every part of your job search, then you are wasting your time. To be quite honest with you, you should always start from a template in every single interaction that you have. You should always have a plan for every single interaction and how you can take it right here. So let's start with the resume. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this as far as how to customize your resume, how to tailor your resume, if you will. However, a lot of job seekers that I see spend way too much time on this particular step, whereas what you can do is you can make a generic version of it and then figure out some way so that you can go through and quickly replace stuff. So people are oftentimes scared of like, hey, how do I go through and I customize my resume for this job, which I know is going to have a positive impact. And I know I should build that habit, but it takes a lot of time, takes distraction out of my day and stuff. So figure out how to make it as easy on yourself as possible. What I like to oftentimes recommend is the very first thing is you want to make sure that the position title that's listed up here matches exactly with the job description. That's automatically going to make you perform much better during the search process. You also want to make sure that you are seeking the right kind of opportunity, and you briefly express why you want it. And then you also talk a little bit more about the number of years of experience that you have in the field or your other unique qualifiers for the condition. And then finally, let's talk about just kind of gaming the system just a little bit. So if you're looking through the job description and it seems to have some pretty specific stuff in there, or even if it doesn't, even if it has stuff that you've seen a million times before, make sure that it appears in your skills box right here of knowledge, skills, and abilities. You can even do this with technical skills as well. I like to leave it all as X's because then what I can do is I can do a search through my document and just look for X's, and that way it'll pop out to me and I can make sure that I don't make any mistakes. But I can go through really quickly and customize this resume in a matter of 5 minutes. That's all you need to do for tailoring it. But let's talk about all the other different things that you can do to really take a lot of the routine kind of mundane sorts of things that you would do and really kind of apply these habits a little bit more effectively right here. This is actually something that I got from a job seeker earlier today, and I was just so darn impressed that I was like, I need to steal this and I need to actually turn this around for all the folks at Launchpad right here. Hi, Myles. Hi, my name is Myles, and I met you at XXX event. I'm looking for blank kinds of positions. I also applied for one of your openings online. And then a quick summary of exactly what their skills are for this administrative kind of role. I'm also on LinkedIn. I encourage you to connect with me and also with your coworkers. And then my final favorite thing too is that it has a very specific call to action right there. Myles, are you the best person to follow up with about this position? The final thing that I like to recommend here is that many job seekers I run into do not have email signature. That means that I have to do work as a recruiter to figure out how to call you or figure out how to email you or whatever. Take all the guesswork out of it, include it all, and it just, again, it looks professional. It just looks like something that somebody seeking a professional role would do as well. Hi, XXX. My name is Miles, and I applied for an administrative position last week. I haven't heard back from anyone at XXX company. I wanted to see if the role was still open. If not, do you have a similar opening for which I might be a good fit? I appreciate your consideration. Takes all the thought out of it. You can just send it off, and I'll send it out a week later. Just kind of see. A lot of times they just haven't been through the process, but this will oftentimes generate a response. Or even if it doesn't generate a response, a lot of times they go, wait a second, oh yeah, that job. Let me go back into my system and look at this person to see if they'd be a fit for this position. Now you've had a recruiter look at your resume twice instead of once. By the way, every single person that you are interacting with in the job search process, you should connect with every single one of them on LinkedIn. Hi, XXX. I met you at XXX. I'm looking for an administrative role. I wanted to connect with you via LinkedIn. I admire your company and hope to get a chance to interview with you. Cool. Now, my other kind of little cool thing that I like to throw out here as well is that, I don't know about y'all, but I have like a lot of LinkedIn connections, and sometimes I forget why I actually connected with a person, right? But what this does is this allows me to actually look back in my LinkedIn history and say, oh yeah, I had reached out to Miles because of X, Y, and Z. Hi, XXX. I look forward to meeting you at the interview tomorrow for blank company at blank time and blank location. Make it really, really super clear right here. That way you can clarify any details about, hey, is it going to be on site? Is it going to be remote? Or is it going to be at what time? Is it going to be at Eastern or Central Standard Time? A lot of times what you can do right here is you can make sure that you are confirming all the details and that you're not going to get lost somewhere in communication. I promise I don't have too many more of these for y'all right here, but again, I feel like it's really valuable to be able to kind of see this consistency right here. Hi, XXX. It was great to meet you yesterday, and thanks for taking the time to talk with me about the position. I feel like we really connected about blank, and I'm excited to see what next steps are for the position. Per our conversation, I will follow up with you at X, Y, and Z time to see where you're at in the hiring process. To reiterate what I was telling Shannon earlier, always ask at the end of the interview, hey, I feel like we had a good connection. Is it okay if I follow up with you in 2 weeks from now? And how do I best do that? Now, here's my other kind of like ninja move that I like to throw out to people is that a lot of times what you can do is you can even thank them if you got declined for an interview or if you got declined for a job. I'm sorry to hear I was not selected for this position, but really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about the role. If possible, can you share any feedback for me? That's going to allow you to improve your own job search. And then finally, here's the ninja move. I hope to keep in touch with you about any future roles that come up. Is it okay if I check back in with you in a couple months to see if there are any similar roles to this one? Now, the reason that's effective right there is that if you made it 90% or even 75% of the way through the process with that particular company, you have no idea why you probably got removed from consideration. Maybe you can get some feedback on that and just know, but the other more important thing is that a lot of times they are reasons that are completely outside of your control. And what this allows you to do is this allows you to keep yourself in mind for other future positions, because maybe you applied that project manager position and you were kind of missing a couple of years of experience in the particular category that they're looking for, or you tend to be more focused on this other thing. But odds are that you might be a good fit for them. If they took the time to interview you that time, you might be a fit for another future role as well too. So again, I'm happy to share any of this stuff with the Launchpadders right here if you feel like this might be valuable for you, but I encourage you, build templates for everything that you do. Jumping back into it, LinkedIn and networking. I'm so excited excited that every time that I come onto Launchpad, everybody is sharing their LinkedIn information and everybody is networking. You should network like it is your job, because effectively it is your job and it could probably get you your next one. What does that mean also? Well, that not only means that you are going and connecting with everybody on LinkedIn, but that you have some kind of presence on LinkedIn, that you post yourself, that you develop a bit of a personal brand when you're on LinkedIn. I actually kind of have the habit sometimes where I spend maybe a little bit too much time on it, but I found that a lot of job seekers that do that. So LinkedIn is always looking for content. And I oftentimes joke that there's only two types of people that are on LinkedIn: recruiters and people that are looking for work, right? So a lot of times LinkedIn is looking for content. Recruiters like me are constantly scrolling through it and constantly looking at people and looking at things to kind of engage with. And so this gets you in front of their eyeballs all that more often. But networking extends way beyond that. If you do not have a physical copy of your resume that you have printed out and in your car, I would encourage you to do that right now. I would encourage you to hit the print button. I would encourage you to take it and stick it in your car, because you never know when that person at the grocery store that you meet happens to be the hiring manager for X, Y, and Z company, that they can pass it on to their particular counterpart. I'd also encourage you to just think about all the different places that you might potentially meet people and figure out how you can make more serendipitous interactions happen too. It's all about socialization. You know, we can't do this job search thing completely alone and in isolation. And we kind of talked about this a lot in the previous segment right here, but a lot of good habits that I recommend are all about the follow-ups. My father-in-law is really a big fan of saying, when it comes to free throws, well, you have to make your free throw because they're free. And oftentimes I look at it the same kind of way when we're talking about follow-ups. Realistically, with follow-ups, it is, you get another chance to shoot at the basket to either increase your score, which is great, or get a second chance at that job. Every time that you have a chance to follow up with somebody, you should absolutely take it, because it gives you yet another opportunity. And let's talk about your communication habits as well. I want actually in the chat right here, if you don't mind, go ahead and plug in a little bit more about how you answer the phone. I'm going to be looking for a couple of answers, and I want you to answer, exactly how do you answer not only the people that you know, but also unknown numbers and unlisted numbers. Aaron says, good afternoon, this is Aaron. Love it. All right, I'm not seeing any other answers. This is Mary Ann. This is Nora. Fantastic. The biggest thing that I want you all to avoid is hello. Hello. I can't tell you how often as a recruiter, I find that where I call people out of the blue and I have no idea who I'm talking to, or if I even dialed the right number, or I'm talking to the right person. So sometimes it's just a simple matter of answering, hello, this is Myles, and kind of leaving it open to there. I want to reiterate that point too, that you should always answer unknown numbers, because you never know when or where a recruiter is going to be calling you. But these communication habits oftentimes kind of extend way more than just answering the phone as well. We talked about it briefly, but make sure that you have a really good email signature in every single one of your outbound communications too. You also want to make sure that you're being really cognizant about how you respond to. Are you responding in complete sentences? Are you checking your grammar and spelling every time that you do it? When you're going and communicating on LinkedIn, are you doing it in a professional way? All of these things have a cumulative effect. And so you just need to make sure that you get out in front of that and are really, really good and consistent about how you communicate with every single interaction. And then finally, some of the habits that we can talk about when it comes to doing the interview as well. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this right here, because I imagine I'm already probably running a little bit shy, but just make sure that you are doing really, really good, consistent things. So this means that you are walking into the interview and you're showing up a little bit early, that you're wearing the right kind of clothes, that you've researched the company ahead of time before you ever sit down for that interview. That means that you've looked up all of your interviewers on LinkedIn and you know exactly what their vibe is and kind of have spied them out a little bit ahead of time. That also means that you have a physical copy of your resume with you in your car, so that in case somebody has never seen your resume before, you can say, hey, I have an extra copy that I can give to you as well. So you want to make sure all these little things do add up and help you be able to kind of do it. And then the final tip at the end there too is make sure that you have next steps. And really, this is not only for you being more effective in your job search, this is to save you a lot of anxiety as well. Always be looking for next steps every single interaction that you have with somebody. So the moment that you get done with that interview, say, I had a really good time talking with you, Shannon. I appreciated all that we were able to share and talk about today. When is a good time to follow up with you? Can I follow up in 2 weeks? Always be asking for that next step. And then the final tip that I would throw out there is around negotiation. I've been putting a lot of thought into this particular point right here, but I feel like it's valid. I have never heard of a job seeker who has lost a job opportunity because they asked for something. Now, you want to make sure that it's reasonable, but at the same time, many people are underpaid for their role simply because they never negotiate with somebody. Now, the big thing about negotiation, as Americans, we're oftentimes uncomfortable with it, right? We hate going to the car dealership and haggling with them, and it feels dirty, right? But the reality of it is that with every single job offer, your time is valuable, and oftentimes you have some room to negotiate with them. And also think about the different things that you can negotiate. So it's not just about compensation, but it's also about time. If you already have a vacation that's planned, make sure that you have that going in. And just at the end of the day, make sure that you ask for everything that you want. Be prepared for not being able to get everything that you want. That's part of life, but at the same time, be prepared to walk in and ask for every single thing that you want. And you should ask for what you're worth too.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Of course, yeah.
So this is Kathy. With the staffing company and we always talk about how on your website, your job postings say this is the salary or this is the salary range. With a staffing company is a little bit different in terms of negotiation because it might be a temp job or a contract job. And so do you still ask for what you want just in case there's some wiggle room? Or do you assume that what they have said they're going to pay is what it will be?
You can assume for us, for example, that what's listed is probably what you're going to get. However, there may still potentially be. Just don't get your heart broken, Kathy, if we say, oh, the $27 an hour, that is, that is actually what we're able to pay you. And then the bigger thing too is that, again, this is a habit. This is just something that you do with every single time that you're negotiating with an employer or time that you're kind of interacting with an employer. I've never seen anybody lose out on a job because they asked. Mm-hmm. Never. So why not?
Worst they can do is say no.
The worst thing they can do. And again, like there might be more, think of negotiation too. There's a lot of aspects to negotiation. It's all about looking for things that are going to make you successful and looking for things that you want. So a lot of times it's very common for us actually where somebody will go and they say, hey, I really want to do this job, but I already had a pre-planned vacation. Okay, great. We can probably plan a later start for you. That's not really a problem. Maybe the customer, they might have a challenge with that. Maybe it requires some back and forth. Maybe we might say no, but you're probably not going to lose the job because of it. All right. So small changes have an incremental impact over time. It's all about that follow-up. It's all about the follow-up, and then have a plan with executable steps. So I like to recommend that you always have a plan and you always have a strategy. You always have a thought process for literally everything during the course of your interactions, and that's going to make you more effective during the course of it. All right, so let's talk about action items right here. And this is where y'all are going to write down. You can write it into the chat or you can write it onto a sheet of paper. But I'd like you to identify some habits that you'd like to change. If anybody feels brave enough to share it in the chat, I would welcome that.
While people are writing,
yeah, what's that?
I was just going to say, while people are writing, Miles, can you tell me a little bit about running when the nighttime temperature in Austin is 90 degrees? How did you
I have
keep
to
that
switch. I know I
up
have to
during the
switch
heat
sports.
wave?
Yeah. I have to switch sports. So I swim during the summer, but then during the spring and fall and winter, I run. So
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
it's impossible. Anytime that I get above like 80 degrees, it's not going to happen.
Okay, thank you. And I'm so sorry I went on top of somebody else who had a comment.
Aaron says, I would like to start making a habit of asking for informational interviews. Yeah, that's solid. Aaron, a lot of times the people want to share their expertise, people want to help. So, and again, what's the worst thing that can happen for asking for this? You just don't hear from them. I mean, that will probably happen a few times, but it doesn't hurt. And it gets you in front of that employer. And Aaron says she's shy. Thank you. Rick says procrastination. Okay, Rick, I would encourage you to make it specific, make it measurable right there. So talk a little bit more. And you can answer in the chat, or you can answer on your own sheet of paper right there exactly what you are going to do to address your procrastination. All righty, we'll let a couple people write right here. To recap, we're writing down the new habits that we'd like to adapt. And then finally, creating a plan for changing these habits going forward. So it's all about measuring, it's all about writing it down, it's all about executing. And of course, don't forget to pat yourself on the back and give yourself consistent feedback to let you know that you, Myles, are doing a great job. All right, cool. That's what I have for y'all. I'll go ahead and open it up for Q&A at this point in time. Oh, Ahmed says, my habit is to prioritize with one action and no choices or options. My comment, according to Glassdoor, the standard salary for a senior accountant is $50 per hour in Austin, Texas. As part of negotiations, you should have done some homework about salary requirement. Okay. I think that's feedback for me, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, feel free to elaborate on that, Ahmed. All right. Anybody have questions or answers, or the things that they want to challenge me on, or thoughts that they have about changing their own habits?
Question, Myles. This is James.
Hey, James.
Sometimes when I'm trying to change a habit and it doesn't change over a period of time, I get frustrated. What do you do when you reach a point of frustration? How do you continue on?
Is this where you fail to adopt it in the first place, or fail to follow up with it?
I think to adopt it in the first place.
Okay. I think the best thing that I can recommend is probably you have to start somewhere, and the scariest step is the first step, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And it never hurts to try. And I think that the other thing to keep in mind too is that if you do find yourself struggling with it, don't beat yourself up about it. Like, offer yourself feedback, offer yourself constructive criticism around that, and write it down. But at the same time, don't be afraid to try, and don't be afraid to start a new habit.
Okay, and I apologize, I was not clear, Myles.
Oh, okay.
Say I'm like with exercise, I will do it for like 20 days in a row. And then I may miss a day because I have something going on that day that doesn't allow the time. And then I get off track. And then how do you stay on track when you have things that may interrupt the progress you're making?
Well, you're going to always have stuff that interrupts. So I like to encourage you, put it into your schedule, write it down, and move past it.
All right.
Interruptions, and just move past it.
Just do it.
Yeah,
just do it. Yeah. And that's something that it's interesting. It's something that I tell people. They're like, oh, the mountain is so big to move. I'll say, just do something for 15 minutes. Just you can do it for 15 minutes and get through that. And then if you want to continue, you can, but just you can do 15 minutes.
Yeah. And it's all about having, something we didn't talk about too, but you can oftentimes have other accountability buddies. That's very possible that you might find somebody within Launchpad that will help hold you accountable, that you can say, hey, James, would you mind checking in with me 2 weeks from now and seeing how this habit that I'm trying to change is going for me? That could be something that is really effective. In fact, so my primary hobby is that I design and develop hobby board games. And the reason that so basically my goal is to develop a brand new one every 2 months that is ready to pitch to publishers. And the single thing that I can credit with any success in that field, and I've fortunately had a decent bit lately, is that I meet with people to play test my board games every 2 weeks like clockwork, and it's not an option. So that means that I have to get it done and I have to work on it. So I have something in my schedule, I have a plan, and sometimes I'm scrambling a little bit at the last minute. I'm not sure how I'm going to possibly pull it out, but at the end of the day, some days are going to be better than others, but it's been effective for me.
Thank you.
Of course.
I'm hearing a lot of discipline. Yeah.
Well, I think that when you do have an accountability buddy, just like for running, on those days that you don't feel like it, you really want to sleep in, but somebody's waiting for you. You're not going to disappoint them. You're going to show up, you're going to suit up and show up because they're there. So having that person. And the other thing I was going to say is, Myles, do you ever play Wordle?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I have found, I'm kind of a late adopter of Wordle, but they say, here's how long you've been doing it. You've got this many days in a row. Yeah. And then when I've missed, so I had 37 days in a row, and that was a big deal to me. It just takes 5 minutes, and I've done it. But when I missed one, I thought I had done it and I hadn't. And so then it was like, oh no, I've started it from scratch. But then that is a challenge, because I want to keep going, this many days in a row, this many days in a row, and this many days in a row. So it could be that that's a little mind game that you play about whatever you're trying to do.
My mom is a big fan of Duolingo for trying to learn Spanish, and she shared with me the other day that she has not missed her 10-minute Spanish learning session on the app in 2.5 years. And there's a lot of power in that kind of repetition too.
There's a question in the chat. Is it worth talking with recruiters who randomly contact me on LinkedIn? I've had a few reach out, but I find it to be a really disappointing experience where I get shut down quickly, mostly because I think they haven't really looked at my experience. Are these interactions worthwhile? And if so, how can I be better prepared?
Yeah, so, and thank you for the comment, Mary, especially because I feel like a lot of job seekers are probably in your place where they're frustrated with the process. It is frustrating, and a lot of times recruiters are looking for something very specific. My general advice is that you can usually think of it as like kind of a first date, if you will, where like you go on the first date, you say, why the heck not? I'm not sure if it's going to work out. I'm not going to plan on marrying this person. Go for a date and just make sure that you know where the exit door is and that it's going to be really, really fast. So you can oftentimes make it a 5 or 10 minute conversation if it seems obvious. And, if you're not going to be able to talk your way into the job, a lot of times you're not going to be able to talk your way into the job. But again, maybe you talk to that recruiter and maybe they realize that you're not a fit for this job, but you had a positive enough interaction with them and you took the time to connect with them afterwards on LinkedIn. And so they reach out to you for another job, another different job. You never know with this kind of thing. It's all about the serendipitous interactions, and it's all about kind of maintaining that long referral network. The other thing that most people don't realize too is that recruiters get into this business because they want to help people. They want to talk to other people, and they want to help people get work ultimately. It is pretty regular that recruiters will send resumes back and forth to each other, not only within the same company, but between different companies. So sometimes it's worth it to have those conversations just on the off chance that that person happens to be a really nice guy or gal and they send your resume on to somebody else.
And Myles, we have a question from Ahmed. Do you only use LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor? What about Monster, Dice, ZipRecruiters? Are they now obsolete?
It depends. So I definitely see a lot less activity that's happening on Monster, for example, and typically Dice is mostly used for people that are looking for IT kinds of jobs, in my experience. So you want to make sure that you're focusing your time on areas that are going to have the most results, but I'd go wherever you see the jobs being posted. And again, find those jobs, find those companies more specifically, and then go directly to the horse's mouth and try to get the jobs right there.
Thank you. Okay, folks, so you've got a recruiter sitting in front of you. So ask your questions about folks who are contacting you, or you're reaching out to a recruiter. Myles, I know you do much more than recruiting, but now's your time to ask someone in this role frank questions.
And real quick, Randy says, I updated my Monster resume and suddenly received recruiters contact me. Cool, that's great, Randy. What you'll find is that different industries will use different platforms. It might be a cost thing. It might be an exposure and awareness thing. People oftentimes ask me, hey, should I post my resume on Monster or Indeed or on LinkedIn? And I say, why not just do all of them? Like, do all the above, because different people are going to use different platforms. And so, yeah, Randy, you bring up a good point that different people may use different things and you may get different traction out of them. We just at Peak Performance primarily use Indeed and ZipRecruiter ourselves.
Myles, how do you handle or how should they handle the ghosting situation from recruiters that are either reaching out to them saying you're great for the role, or even worse, saying I'm going to get you that interview next week, and then they never hear back?
Yeah. Kill them with kindness and never react negatively if you possibly can. And don't be afraid to be just a smidge annoying. I oftentimes say that I've been effective because I can be I follow up a lot. And sometimes people might find that annoying, but it gets it done. You get the answer that you need. Again, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know why they chose to ghost you, why they chose to not interact with you. But if you can keep it positive, if you can keep following up, they may reach out to you about another similar opportunity in the future.
And Myles, I have a similar question. I will at times get an email from someone, a recruiter, who says they have a fantastic fit for me. So I will call them back and they say they need my information within 2 hours or by the end of the day. And I have to drop everything to get that information to them. And then nothing happens with that. Do you think that those recruiters are trying to meet a quota or trying to give the client, X number amount of submissions? What would you recommend when someone's pushing you hard to get something back to you same day?
You have to make sure that you respect your own time and that you respect your own bandwidth. If it is not plausible for you to get everything to them that day, and it seems like a questionable opportunity or you don't have a relationship, then, just treat it as much as you can. Don't be afraid to push back either. For example, if you already have something planned for that day, don't be afraid to say, hey, I have some other things that are going on today. Is it okay if I get it over to you by tomorrow? Now, where that's probably coming from is that, yes, recruiting is a very fast-paced kind of business. You probably have heard me say before that the average recruiter spends about 6 to 10 seconds looking at a resume before they make some kind of decision about whether they're going to look at it further or they're going to move on. And most people, their resumes kind of die in the maybe pile, if you will, where the recruiter looks at it, but they don't have a very strong impression one way or the other. And so they just kind of stick it over here and kind of forget about it, right? So a lot of times what that's some of the challenges that are kind of going on behind the scenes. Even in the midst of kind of like a hiring crunch right here, we kind of go from this one extreme of where we don't have enough applicants for a particular position. And then by the time that we get around to actually saying, okay, we as a company, and this is not Peak Performance specifically, but most companies in general, by the time that they get around to saying, okay, I'm going to post this job to Indeed and spend $2,000 promoting the job. then which it can be that expensive. It can be really expensive for a company to post a job and to advertise it widely. Now all of a sudden they go from having a very small candidate pool to an extremely large candidate pool, and they can't possibly get in touch with everybody as well. Additionally, too, if it gets to the point where it's posted on Indeed, it's probably like they needed to fill it yesterday, if not 2 weeks ago. It's a burning need that they have at that particular time. So yeah, recruiting is a very fast-paced business. A lot of times recruiters are incentivized by some kind of commissions based off the number of placements that they make. And just take it with a grain of salt as to whether or not you should try to conform to their particular rushes that they have.
Thank you.
Sure.
What other questions?
They have no questions. They're all going to go get jobs next week, and we'll have a whole new set of people next week.
By the way, Sherry, I wanted to shout you out. Thank you for kind of summarizing some of the key takeaways into the chat there. That's much appreciated.
Sherry doesn't get to go find a job because Sherry takes over for me every time, and I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Sherry.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure talking with each of you. Feel free to reach out to me. Again, it's all about that follow-up, right? It's all about building your network, and I'm happy to be part of your network. So it's been a pleasure talking with y'all. And for the record, I wish you all the very best on your job search.
Thank you, Myles. We appreciate you being with us today.